Thank you very much, Pippa. If I could add my welcome to Pippa's. It's wonderful to be together this morning. Have I switched myself on? Let me just make sure I have. Yes, my light's on, so hopefully you can hear me okay. We're going to have our Bible reading in a minute, but I just wanted to introduce the theme that I think is right at the heart of what God is saying to us through our reading this morning. So, Victor, I wonder if you could put the first slide on for me, please. And the question that I want us to have a little think about is, what makes you say, wow? When's the last time that you perhaps heard something or saw something that you just thought that was amazing? And whether inwardly or out loud you said, wow. I wonder, maybe it was something in the world, in creation. So a couple of weeks ago, I think it's a couple of weeks ago now, some of us might have spotted the partial solar eclipse that we were treated to here. We had clear skies. If you managed to get hold of some of those glasses, or if you got a colander from your kitchen drawer, you might have seen something like this. And it was amazing. I found it amazing. I missed the last one because it was cloudy in Northern Ireland. So I was amazed. I said, wow. Or perhaps it was something that you did. You achieved something, or someone else achieved something. Maybe somebody famous. So the European Championships, athletics have been on. Amy Hunt, 4 gold medals. That's amazing. And maybe we went and said, wow. Or maybe something a bit simpler. And you've tasted something. Maybe over the holidays, over summer, you have had a taste of something, maybe the best ice cream you've ever had, or somebody's cooked you something and you just said, wow, that was amazing. Over the last few weeks, over the summer really, we've been in this part of Luke's Gospel where Jesus has been talking to a crowd of people who are amazed by everything that he has been doing and saying. It's quite early on in his ministry, but people have heard about things he's been doing. They've heard that he's been speaking with this authority that they've never heard before, and they are amazed. And so they've gathered, and we've listened in as he's talked to them. And then he finishes. And this week, the next bit of Luke is kind of the what happened next. Jesus moves on. He goes to Capernaum, which is where it was kind of his hometown. But the crowd follow him. They want more. And we do see a little more in today's passage. Jesus does do something amazing, but that's not actually the focus, at least of what Luke, I think, is trying to tell us. Because it's not actually what Jesus does that is amazing, although it is. But Jesus turns and says, wow. So there is something that Jesus spots, and we're going to hear it in a moment, so I want you to listen up really well. What does Jesus find amazing? There are only 2 times in the whole of the Gospels that we are told that Jesus says, wow, that Jesus is amazed. And this is one of them. You can talk to me about the other one over coffee later. We're going to focus on this one for today. So I'm going to invite Peter's on his way up. Thank you, Peter. Peter's going to read from Luke chapter 7, verses 1 to 10. And we're all going to listen. And we're going to see what is it that amazed Jesus. Thank you, Peter.
So the reading can be found on page 1035 in the Church Bible. The words will be up on the screen as well. So this is Luke 7, verse 1. When Jesus had finished saying all this to the people who were listening, he entered Capernaum. There, a centurion servant, whom his master valued highly, was sick and about to die. The centurion heard of Jesus and sent some elders of the Jews to him, asking him to come and heal his servant. When they came to Jesus, they pleaded earnestly with him, "This man deserves to have you do this, because he loves our nation and has built our synagogue." So Jesus went with them. He was not far from the house when the centurion sent friends to him to say, "Lord, don't trouble yourself, for I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. That is why I did not even consider myself worthy to come to you. but say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes. And this one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him, and turning to the crowd following him, he said, I tell you, I have not found such great faith, even in Israel. Then the men who had been sent returned to the house and found the servant well. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Thank you, Peter. What makes Jesus say, wow? If there are any children that want to join me on the carpet, you're very welcome to. You're also welcome to stay where you are. It's entirely up to you. We'll have some pictures on the screen, but I have some things to show you here as well that you might see a little bit better. So the central character in today's story is this guy. He's a Roman centurion. Now, I have brought a few things with me. Anyone know what this is? It's a sword. Our Roman centurion has a sword. He would have had a sword, and he would probably have had one of these, which is a shield. And we can see the picture there that he's got a helmet, a shield. He's quite an impressive guy. He might have, if he walked down the street, people might well have said, wow, look at this guy. He's a soldier, but he's not just any soldier. He's a soldier who's in charge of some other soldiers. So century, being 100, meant that he had about 100 soldiers in his platoon who he looked after and he sent out to battle, but actually he would have gone with them and helped them to defeat and to win the battles. But this centurion is in trouble. I'm going to sit down. He needs some help because he has a servant who he actually really likes quite a lot, this servant. He loves him. And his servant is really ill, really, really sick, and he's gone to all the doctors and nobody has been able to help, and he's about to die. But the centurion has heard about this Jewish rabbi that people are calling Jesus, who has been doing amazing things, saying amazing things, and he wonders, maybe, could Jesus help? Could Jesus help his servant? And so he sends some leaders from the Jewish people to go to Jesus and to kind of say, please could you help me? And when they come, they arrive and they meet Jesus, and they kind of, in a way, they may not have brought these things with them, but they might have done, because they decided that they need to try and persuade Jesus to help the centurion. And so they sort of want to show the centurion off a bit, to kind of make Jesus go, wow, yeah, I'll come and help him. Because look at him, he's really impressive. And so they plead earnestly with him. And there's two kind of things that they basically say about this centurion to Jesus. They say, Jesus, look, he's got a servant who's about to die, and you should help him because he is really good. He's a really good guy. He might be a Roman, he might be one of the occupying force, but he's one of the good ones. He loves our nation, our people, Jesus. He's kind to us, he's good to us. He deserves for you to come and do this. And then they tell Jesus that he's built their synagogue. The synagogue was a bit like their church building, where they could worship God. And this centurion built it for them. Probably not with his bare hands. Not that kind of strength we're talking about. But he had power, he had influence, and he made it happen. Because he's not just really good, but he's really strong. So do you see what they're doing? They're trying to amaze Jesus. They're trying to wow him into helping. Now, I wonder if we ever try to wow Jesus like that too. I wonder if we ever come to God, come to church maybe, and think, I think if I want God to help me, if I want God to save me, if I want him to accept me, I need to wow him. And so I sort of fill up my imaginary bag. I don't probably carry one exactly like this, but imagine this is filled with all the good things that I have done this week. So I have been really polite. Whenever there's been grown-ups that have given me things, I've said thank you and I've said please. I've been really kind to my siblings. I've shared my toys with them all the time. I've listened really well when I've been out. I've behaved perfectly when I've been to church. So all these good things, look God, look Jesus. Be amazed and help me. Or maybe we've had a week where we felt really quite strong, where we've done some amazing things. And we think, well, yeah, Jesus, he'll want me on his side because I can do things for him. I'm really strong. The trouble is, if that is what wows Jesus, there will be some weeks when my bag of good and strong things will look a little bit more like this, won't it? Because there will be some weeks, maybe, where I've not always shared my toys with my friends, when I have said things to my brother or sister that have been a bit mean, where I've not been polite, where we can all think of examples of things where we've been less good and less strong, and so we come to church and we feel a little bit inadequate. We feel a bit like, I wonder, will God help me? Will Jesus accept me? Will he love me? There might be even weeks where we don't feel like we've got anything at all. But is Jesus wowed by those things? That's what we're asking today, aren't we? Well, let's go back into our story and see what happens next. Because Jesus, he listens to what they say about how strong and good the centurion is, and he doesn't really say anything back to them, but we read that he does go with them. So he goes with them to the centurion, and he's not far from the centurion's house now, and then the centurion sends more people out to meet Jesus, this time his friends, only this time they've got words from the centurion himself. So they're going to say something else. So listen up to what they say. They say, Lord, don't trouble yourself, for I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. You see, whereas the first group said, this man deserves your help, Jesus, the second group, his friends, using his own words, say, he doesn't deserve to have you come, Jesus. He knows that. The man goes on to say, I don't even consider myself worthy to come to you. And then he talks in verse 8 about how he's a man in authority and he tells his soldiers to do this and they do it. He tells his servant to do this and they do it. So he is quite strong, but he's telling his servant to do things now. Servant's lying in bed about to die, can't do anything. The centurion knows that his strength has its limits. He cannot help in this situation. He knows he's not strong enough. So is Jesus going to come? Well, we read on in the story and we find that Jesus does come. And then he turns to the crowd and he says, he was amazed. This is what it says, verse 9. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him. And turning to the crowd following him, he said, I tell you, I have not found such great faith in Israel. The thing that amazes Jesus, the only thing that amazes Jesus in the whole of the Gospels, is the simple faith of one nameless outsider. Because that's what that man was. Jesus isn't amazed by how strong the man is or how good the man is. He's amazed by his faith. Faith which says, I know I'm not good enough, but Jesus, you are. Faith which says, I know I'm not strong enough, but I know you are. You see, this man knew that Jesus had been good to people. He'd been good not just to his friends and to other Jewish people, but he'd been good to outsiders too. And so he had faith in Jesus' goodness. And he had heard about all the amazing things Jesus had done to heal people and the miracles he'd done, and he knows Jesus is stronger than me. And so he says, verse 7, Jesus, you don't even have to come. Just say the word and my servant will be healed. That's how strong I know you are. And so you see, Jesus is amazed by faith, which means when we come to Jesus, he invites us not to hold up and show off all the good things that we've done, but to set them down and to come to him with outstretched hands that are empty and say, Jesus, I know that I'm not good enough, but you are. I know that I'm not strong enough, but you are. And then we can experience his goodness and his strength at work in our lives. And so we can become good and strong. We've just sung, haven't we? Be bold, be strong. Why? For the Lord your God is with you. It's not our strength, it's his. And if we're ever not sure how good or strong Jesus is, really, he points us to the cross, where Jesus died for us, where all of his goodness was poured out on us even when we least deserved it, so that we could be forgiven, so that we could be part of his family. And we see his strength because on the cross he defeats the powers of sin and death and evil forever. And so Jesus says, stop putting your faith in these things, however big or small they may be, and put all of your faith in me. We're going to sing a song now, and then there are some activity sheets for you to have a go at if you'd like to, while I just spend another few minutes talking to the grown-ups. But this song is a wonderful song that is filled with truths about how good and how strong Jesus is. So let's stand, if we're able, together, and let's sing I Have a Friend. Brilliant. Do sit down again, and if you'd like to go and do your activities, you can, or you're welcome to stay here as well. It's entirely up to you. But Victor, I wonder if you could just put the next slide on for me. Just a few minutes for us to think about what this faith that amazes Jesus should look like in our lives and even in the life of our church. Well, the first thing that I just wanted to highlight was that what amazed Jesus on that day in Capernaum, the only thing out of two that we're told amazed Jesus in his whole time on earth, is actually nothing new. Ever since God created the world, we turned away from him, and then he made a promise to rescue us and bring us back to him. There's one thing that he's been looking for. There's one thing that he has delighted in and that has amazed him. And you can find it in lots of places, but I turned to Psalm 147. We're just going to pick a couple of verses here, but I would encourage you, when you get home this afternoon, sometime this week, read this whole psalm. it will encourage you. But firstly, we see verse 6 that it says that the Lord lifts up the humble. Not the Lord lifts up those who've done lots of good things, or those who are kind of strong enough to lift themselves up a bit themselves. No, the Lord lifts up those who know that they're not good enough and they're not strong enough. And that's not a one-off verse. You could probably search that into Google and you will find countless verses in Old and New Testament that tells us that God raises up, lifts up those who know they're not good enough. And then a little bit later in the psalm, we read this. His pleasure, his wow, his amazement is not in the strength of the horse, nor his delight in the legs of the warrior. Okay, this is poetry here. The Lord delights in, the Lord is wowed by those who fear him. Those who put their hope, their faith in him and in his unfailing love. Those who know that they don't have the strength to do it themselves. But say, you, Lord, you are good enough. You are strong enough. And so I put my faith in you. And so what amazed Jesus that day in Capernaum is what has always amazed God as he moves towards us. And it is what still amazes him, delights him, gives him pleasure today, here in this place. When God looks down on our little gathering this morning, he is not amazed by a church that is full of good people, or a church that is full of strong people who do great things for him. He is amazed by a church that is full of faith. It is full of people who come through that door knowing, Lord, I don't deserve to be here. I don't deserve to come to you, but I know that you are good and you are full of grace and you welcome even me. God delights in and is amazed by those who come through that door, not saying, what am I going to do for God today? But I cannot wait to see what he does for me and for our church. Who are ready to say, Lord, just say the word and it will happen. And so, as we come to a close, just a few, I suppose, three things for us to perhaps take away and think about which one of these might we want to really pray to God that he would help us to grow in, because it's a key strand of our vision that we are a church that is growing in faith. So we don't want to be growing in any faith. We certainly don't want to be growing in faith in ourselves. We want to be growing in the kind of faith that amazes Jesus. And so what will that look like? Well, first of all, for probably all of us, but some of us may need to hear this more than others at this time, is that we will need to be learning, and we will be learning not to despair. So when we, as individuals or indeed as a collective, have messed up and we've got something wrong, or when we just don't feel strong enough, there's so much we'd love to do, but we just don't have the strength to do it, rather than despairing, we will learn that we know we're never going to be good enough or strong enough. But we will rejoice instead that Jesus is, and our faith is in him, and he will always be good enough and strong enough, and so that joy will dispel the despair. But secondly, again, I think we'll all be learning this, but perhaps some of us need this at this time more than others, that we will be learning not to gloat. So when things are going well for us, again, as individuals or indeed as a collective, when it feels like, I've done quite a lot of good. I've made a positive impact. Our church is making a positive impact. We're doing good. We're seeing some growth. We're not the ones that are doing it. We are not good enough. We are not strong enough. And there's nothing, therefore, to gloat about. So we'll not say, oh, look at that church. Look at us. Look how we're... No. We'll simply be a church that is amazed by Jesus and points one another and others to his goodness and his strength that is enabling us to do what we are encouraged by. And then thirdly and finally, we will be a church that is learning to pray. Jesus taught his disciples to pray. That implies that they needed to learn how to pray. We all need to learn how to pray. It is not an automatic thing that we're good at talking to our Father in heaven. It's hard. But if we have a faith that is in him and not in ourselves, then we will be learning to pray. We'll be learning to pray by ourselves, to find a time in our day when we can be by ourselves and we can find a space to be by ourselves. And we won't worry that we don't really know what to say to God, or that we don't really even know what to pray about, but we will know that God just wants us to be with him and to express our faith in him by sitting, and he will teach us what to say and how to say it. We'll learn to pray in smaller groups, so when we meet for home groups or in other meetings, we'll not sort of do a quick squeezed tag on prayer at the end, but that will be at the heart of what we do as a group. Because we're learning to pray and our faith is in him, not in ourselves. And we'll learn to pray as a whole church. So when there are opportunities for us to gather to pray, again, we won't think, oh, but I don't really know what to do. I don't know what to say. I never pray out loud. None of that matters. God wants us to be a church that is learning to pray. He wants us to be a church that turns up to pray. And just by being there, we are saying to God, I know that I'm not good enough or strong enough, and I know that we as a church are not good enough or strong enough. But I know you are. And so while I don't really know how to do it, I'm just going to be here as a sign of my faith, not in myself, but in this amazing Jesus. Faith, not in ourselves, but in his goodness and in his strength.